Today on Spectrum, we take an ambitious tour of art and architecture in Honolulu's capital district that will allow us to lean over the palace banister to catch royal gossip about priceless treasures, glide down staircases at Ali'iolani Hale, and project ourselves into the future from atop the Honolulu Municipal Building. Of Hawaii's earliest architecture, we have only memories. Built of grass, shacks and palaces alike, they have all gone back to nourish the earth. It is obvious our island's first missionaries weren't carried away by the structural integrity they found. They arrived in the port of Honolulu in April 1820, and by January 1821, they were back at the docks unloading materials for this prim and proper frame house. Every last piece was precision cut in Boston and ready to erect in hallowed New England fashion. In what was probably our first building department snag, King Kamehameha learned of the project and clamped a restraining order on it. He was afraid his royal grass palace was about to be upstaged. Fortunately for the newcomers, he soon relented, and at least part of this clapboard curiosity, with its formal glass windows, shingled roof, and no-nonsense straight lines, was livable by August 1821. If a single coral block of the Kawaihaau Church were damaged here, Reverend Abraham Akaka might be the first to notice. While tending his flock for the past 26 years, he's become intimately involved with the building's conservation.
Now, if you can imagine, this whole area called Honolulu as a barren plain with a few grass houses around and a few coconut trees. The first church, of course, was grass. And there were 5 in a row, bigger and bigger, until in 1835, the King Kamehameha III said we must have a permanent house.
Reverend Hiram Bingham, who was neither an architect nor a builder, drew up the plans from his memory of New England churches. In a severe storm, the steeple blew down, but fortunately, the rest of the edifice held firm, all 14,000 coral blocks of it, based on a foundation 44 inches thick and 12 feet high.
It took 7 years to build, and armies of men. Coral blocks had to be hewn out of the reefs from Waikiki to the airport. These blocks weigh about 1,000 pounds each, and they were dragged up from the beach where Pier 2 is. When I first came to Kawaihaau in 1957, the church was covered with cement, so you had no idea it was of coral, except in little patches where the cement had broken off. I said to the members that we ought to really bring out the beauty of the church by taking all of the cement off. These are the royal pews. Kawaihaau Church is the only church I know of in the United States that has royal pews. Now, the church, when it was built, put the pews here. Before, the coming of the gospel, the king was the highest authority. Nobody was over his head. If his shadow fell on anyone as he walked by, that person was punished. Now here is the king sitting under his people, under the balcony and back of his people.
The chiefs opposed balconies, fearing commoners would cast their shadows on the ali'i. Kamehameha's reply was that he would be harmed only if the balcony itself fell on him. While final touches were being put on Kawaihaut Church in 1842, carpenters were laying the groundwork for another historic building only a few blocks away. American sea captain John Dominus had ordered a gracious wood frame mansion in Greek Revival style. There was no way for him to know it would be a future governor's mansion. Shortly after the house was finished in 1846, Dominus set out on a voyage and never returned. He left behind a widow and a young son, John Owen Dominus. Young John was to marry the girl across the street, Lydia K.P. Kapa'akea, Queen Liliuokalani.
Ekipamai, and welcome to Washington Place. Washington Place is a very historical home. This is the oldest domicile in the state of Hawaii that's been lived in all these years. The Queen lived here until her death in 1917, when she passed away at the age of 79. And my husband is the 14th governor of Hawaii, however the 10th to reside here. This is the reception room. It is one out of the 17 rooms that were restored from 1975 to 1978. This is the blue room. We have the Queen's Chinese furniture that were brought downstairs, and the carpets, the reupholstering, the draperies, and the wallpaper throughout the entire house were replaced during the Restoration era. There are 5 historical portraits here at Washington Place, one of Queen Liliuokalani, and the other 4 are of the HMS Blonde, and of course Te Tupa and Karau Kapa.
It was the HMS Blonde that brought home the bodies of Kamehameha II and his favorite wife, Kamamalu, from England after they both died of the measles.
On this ship was a young artist by the name of Robert Dampierre, and Dampierre did Te Tupa and Karau Kapa, young Hawaiian girl and young Hawaiian boy, which are hanging in the reception room. This portrait was done in 1892 by William Cogswell. It's a life-size portrait of the Queen, and it was part of the palace collection. When I moved here to Washington Place and started the restoration project, I knew that there were many local artists who had much talent, and so I thought here was a perfect setting. This is the patio, and this is Meichi's Yume Hiko'o, a ceramic pot that was done in 1984. Another piece is Sally Fletcher Murchison's Man and Woman, which was done in 1972. Of course, Sally was one of my first instructors, being a potter myself, at the University of Hawaii. This is our garden sculpture here at Washington Place. It's of bronze and copper. It was done by Satoru Abe. It's called Seed Number 2. It represents the husk of the seed bursting forth to grow.
It was to be both palace and government office building, but the palace was never built. King Kamehameha V chose to consolidate all territory offices in the area under this roof of Ali'iolani Hale. Since 1874, this has been the home of the Hawaii Supreme Court. The imagination of New Zealand architect Thomas Rowe must have soared as he designed the exterior with its Italian-style detailing and uncommon cement blocks. Rowe was less artistic in handling the interior. It was dark and dreary, and at the time had only one staircase straight up the center. That was in 1874. When renovation came in 1911, it virtually gutted the interior and installed the two gracefully curved staircases that are a hallmark to this day. The stained glass ceiling in the rotunda was introduced. Ali'i Hale was also the scene for royal balls and other grand ceremonies. The impressive gilded monument to Kamehameha the Great dominates the front of the building with his regal stance. Sculpted by Thomas Gould of Boston, this statue had a rather international career before settling into its tranquil spot in 1883. Gould cast a plaster version in Florence and sent it to Paris for casting in bronze. On its way to Honolulu, the ship carrying the completed statue sank off the Falkland Islands. It is a replica of that casting that now stands here. Later, the original was dredged from the ocean, repaired, and installed in Kohala, Kamehameha's birthplace. Colorful King Kalakaua felt it was about time Hawaii had a palace for the king. The original Iolani Palace was not a royal residence, but a ceremonial hall. 19 other buildings clustered around it housed the ali'i, high chiefs, and their retainers. On the perimeter of the palace grounds are 4 large gates, each with its own name and purpose, be it royal or common. Landscapers are working to restore the grounds to their appearance at the time of the end of the monarchy, 1890-1892. Royal palms will be planted as they once were, lining the drives up to the palace from Richards and King Streets, as well as along the palace walk behind the building. Of course, this magnificent banyan tree will stay. It's believed to have been planted by Queen Kapiolani and is listed in the state registry for trees. Among the eccentricities of the royal compound is the curious barrack structure completed in 1870 and originally located where the state capitol now stands. The Hawaiian ali'i housed their guards in this sturdy coral block structure with its imitation towers and crosses straight out of Sir Walter Scott. Another fixture in the garden is the bandstand, originally a part of King Kalakaua's coronation pavilion and now used by the Royal Hawaiian Band. King Kalakaua's many-faceted character probably couldn't have been better symbolized than by the elaborate confection of Iolani Palace. Completed in 1882, it features Victorian gingerbread and a delicate shingled roof. Royalty swept through these glass doors and into the great hall with its wide gleaming staircase. James Bartels, curator of Iolani Palace, describes some of the luxuries to be found within the royal residence.
Here in the Grand Hall, we have the array of wood seen throughout the palace, primarily imported cedar, which came from the then foreign country of America. Also, koa, as in this koa staircase, one of the largest constructs of carefully select koa wood ever made.
It was Kalakaua who ordered this magnificent portrait collection painted of Hawaii's kings and queens. Only the most renowned artists of the day would do, and their work was hung here in 1886. Unfortunately, the paintings got less than royal treatment in later years.
All these portraits and their frames required considerable conservation. The most notable example of this was the Queen Emma portrait. The frame had been completely overpainted with cheap radiator paint, covering all of the original gold leaf. And the portrait itself had been touched up over and over again. And finally, at one point, one restorer actually painted a new face on it. So the Queen Emma portrait that we knew had a very European appearance and even had blue eyes. And it wasn't until the restorer got beneath this modern change and found a very lovely Polynesian queen underneath. Here in the Blue Room is another portrait we're particularly pleased with. This is of David Kalakaua, builder of Iolani Palace. It's one of a pair painted by William Cogswell, who was official White House portraitist of the day. The companion piece of Queen Liliuokalani presently hangs in Washington Place. Behind these koa doors lies the state dining room. This was the setting for meals as elaborate as those served in any of the royal palaces of Europe. And Napoleon III presented various kings of Hawaii with many of the things you see in this room. One of the predominant pieces is this flamboyant clock in Second Empire style. Also, the portrait of Napoleon III himself that hangs over the large sideboard. The china was the best Paris porcelain, custom made with the Royal Hawaiian coat of arms on every piece. The crystal, also bearing the royal coat of arms, was made in Bohemia, where the finest glass of the period was produced. The silver, again from France, was a gift from Napoleon III.
After 10 years, the restorations at Iolani are still incomplete. This project, which started with structural repairs and has worked down to minute detail of decor, is probably as ambitious as the original construction. In 1911, Andrew Carnegie endowed the Hawaii Library Project with $100,000, and 2 years later, its doors opened. One of its more gracious features is the large garden courtyard. Here in the Etta Allen Room is found a little-known masterpiece. Librarians regularly entertain groups of children with the Hawaiian legends that the late muralist Juliet May Fraser painted here between 1933 and 1934. This was said to have been her favorite project. Pastel shades and flowing lines characterize Fraser's approach to these legendary figures. She portrays them as full of life and gentleness, with love conquering all. Restoration has been an ongoing project at Honolulu, the City Hall. Its unabashed California-Mexican style, so popular in the 1920s, fits comfortably into the potpourri of buildings around it. Roy Tanji, director and building superintendent for the city, admits the stucco structure is one of his favorites.
This is one of the loveliest buildings in the Civic Center. I like its attention to the various details, such as the lantern and the bronze doors.
Each of these fortress-like 1,500-pound doors were crafted from sheets of bronze and accented by hammered bronze straps. Their wrought iron door pulls are stylized replicas of the lei paloa, a Hawaiian chief's ornament fashioned from a sperm whale's tooth and human hair.
The frescoes that you see above were done by Los Angeles artist Einar Peterson. And we have the similar frescoes in the council chambers up above. The painting in the mayor's office ceiling is not a true fresco inasmuch as the colors were added to a concrete ceiling as opposed to being applied on wet stucco. We discovered the ceiling when we had renovation work done in the mayor's office to remove the asbestos in the suspended ceiling. We contacted a local artist by the name of Evelyn Giddings, and she touched up the painted ceiling.
Giddings climbed ladders and mixed pigments for 2 months to complete the job. In the process, she repaired distinctly Hawaiian symbols, canoes, poi bowls, and fish, images different from the foyer's American Indian designs. Unquestionably, Hawaii's most sculptural building, the state capitol, has an architectural style that has come home at last. It draws its inspiration and symbolism straight from the islands. Its 1 8/10 acres of reflecting pools represent the Pacific Ocean around our islands. Planted firmly in the midst of these clear, sparkling waters is a building of unequivocal openness. Its 40 pillars are styled after the palm trees of Hawaii. The twin cone-shaped legislative chambers represent the subterranean depths of the volcanoes which created these islands. The roof design symbolizes the summit of the volcano. From the top of the balcony is an exceptional view of Tadashi Sato's glass mosaic, Aquarius.
As I walked in here, I noticed that the building was surrounded by water, but as I came into this center area, there was no sight of water. Fortunately, at the very same time, my work was involved with the subject matter of submerged rock and water reflections. And it was a matter of just transferring the oil media into a mosaic media for this particular design. What you see today here is just about the right aging process. When it rains, it falls, this whole area gets wet. You get another dimension, a sensation, visual sensation. Hi, Alfred.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
What are you doing here?
Finishing up, just looking at the repairs, what repairs may be done. Get some new pieces out, areas like that.
It looks wonderful now, you know.
Yeah, I like that little dullness.
Vienna-born Alfred Price is one of Hawaii's living treasures. An outstanding architect, he was also the first executive director of the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts and a key member on planning committees for the Capital District. Mr. Price comments on how he feels in retrospect about the artworks in and around the Capitol, such as the hangings by Ruth Adele Anderson. These woven tapestries are found in the State Senate and House chambers.
The tapestries, which are gigantic, some of the largest in this particular manner in the world, have been shaped in such a way to fit the double curves of the chamber. And nowhere are there bulges. We did not want to be provincial, so we wanted to participate in the high level of the arts available anywhere else. So the two chandeliers were done by Otto Pine, a German, now an American, an outstanding artist.
Payne's moon in the Senate is made of polished aluminum and about 630 white chambered nautilus shells. His chandelier of the sun shines in the House and is made of gold-plated copper and brass.
The legislature created a Father Damien committee to commission a work of art on Father Damien, who was a priest elevated to sainthood just recently for his work with the lepers. Marisol Escobar from Venezuela came to New York already with a world reputation. When she participated then here, she did what we all considered the very, very best piece she ever did, her masterpiece.
And the spirit of Liliuokalani.
The sculpture is here. It has been done by a woman from Boston, Mariana Pineda, a very, very fine sculptress. She has the ability to combine a traditional approach with some harder, stronger forms and shapes, geometric shapes. On the Mauka side of the Capitol, on the mountain side, an armed forces memorial was intended as part of the original master plan. Pompey Akaji has been selected. And he did a piece with, there's an internal flame in it, and it's a high point in that area also.
Mr. Akaji says he based his eternal flame on a tiki in its most organic form. The copper base, with its abstract fluid shape, was derived from studying the lines of old black lava rock. The master plan for the Civic Center called for a new attitude in determining the placement of buildings and the surrounding landscape.
We wanted to have as a dominant theme, from the ocean up to the mountain, one continued forest or a park where you walked under the canopies of trees. Open space is larger and more dominant and more important than the buildings themselves. All buildings here are kept below a level of 65 feet. The Capitol is 65 feet. Nothing is supposed to be taller than the Capitol, with the exception of a municipal tower at that end.
One of the prime considerations in designing the Honolulu Municipal Building was to leave the view, the Mauka Makai view, intact so that one can see from King Street the Mauka view of Punch Bowl. The unique feature of this building is, as you can observe, it's column-free between the two end walls. Actually, what supports all the floors are the spandrels that are supported at each end. The building from the second floor tapers on upward. So as you go to the upper floors, the floor gets wider than the lower floor. The sculpture you see between the Honolulu Municipal Building and the Mission Memorial Buildings was designed by the internationally known artist Isamu Noguchi. Noguchi envisioned this sculpture as a unifying element in the Civic Center. And if you walk around Skygate, you will then begin to see the vistas framed by the three elements.
Shelter, the essence of architecture in all its forms in and around the Capitol building, comprising many grand designs, comes home in this sculpture, Skygate, with its minimal shelter, a principle so integral to those grass houses that are now only a romantic memory of Hawaii's past.
Mana o he